So very good morning. Today we will be discussing about a new type of partial differential equation, alright, that is called hyperbolic partial differential equation. So in the earlier lecture I discussed about the parabolic type, alright, where we had the derivatives in x and y, and as well as we have derivatives in time, and we made use of finite element method for spatial discretization and finite difference method for temporal discretization, and we arrived at a set of algebraic equations which we solved at discrete time intervals, right, to find out the response. Now the overall characteristic of that partial differential equation is such that the solution smooths out over time, whatever may happen at the beginning or in the middle of the response, but finally the simulation gradually becomes smooth and smooth, alright. But today the partial differential equation that we are going to discuss, we will see that the response continues to oscillate, okay, forever, alright. In the earlier case we had first order derivative in time, whereas in this particular PDE we have second order derivatives in time. So let us go ahead and discuss about today's topic. Here I have taken a beam problem, alright. Our purpose is to obtain the response of a beam subjected to different initial condition and external excitation, okay, which is time varying. Now as you see here, I have shown here a simply supported beam, alright, where the transverse load is qx comma t, which depends on the position x, okay, and time t, okay. This is the transverse load, and this has been defined as the transverse load per unit length of the beam. Now what we used to do is we used to take a piece of the beam, okay, and show the free body diagram and write the force and moment equilibrium equations, okay, following which we come up with this partial differential equation. Here the y actually denotes the response of the beam, okay, which is a function of x, the position, and time t. So this y is what we are looking for, how the beam is deflecting, okay, at a given time instant, okay, that is what we want to find out. Not only that, we also find out the velocity and acceleration associated with it. Now the second term q, as I have already told, this is the transverse force at a given point in the beam, which is varying with time as well, and the last term, which is basically the acceleration term, where m is basically the mass per unit length of the beam. The del 2 y del t square, that denotes the acceleration, alright, because this is a second order time derivative, alright. So now as you can see here we have spatial derivatives, okay, we have fourth order derivatives here, and here we have second order term, okay, or second order derivative of y in time. Now so this is the governing differential equation, okay, that we are interested to solve. So now here we need the boundary conditions and initial conditions. So here are the four boundary conditions, okay. For the problem in hand, I have considered a simply supported beam. So at both the ends, at x equal to 0 and at x equal to L, the beam is pinned. So the displacement in the vertical direction is completely restricted. So the first two conditions, that y at x equal to 0 for all time and y at x equal to L for all time t, has to be equal to 0, alright. Now in addition, since these two ends are pinned, alright, so we know that pinned ends, they cannot support moment. So on that perspective, so we have written the curvature, okay, at x equal to 0 and x equal to L to be 0. So these four boundary conditions we have considered. Now along with that, I can say what is the shape of the beam. So I can say suppose this is the shape the beam has. So that is initial deflection, okay, at time t equal to 0. So that is one of the initial conditions. Say y at all x for time t equal to 0 is defined as u0x. Alright, so displacement at initial time instant is given. Similarly, we can specify the velocity. So del y del t. So this is del y del t, the velocity, okay, at any point x, okay, at time instant t equal to 0, that is also given. Alright, because we have second order time derivative, so we need two initial conditions. Alright, so once we complete the definition of the problem, now let us go ahead and formulate the discrete set of equations corresponding to this problem. So how we start? We actually replace the unknown, okay, with an approximate function, alright, and we find out the residue. So let us go ahead. Now you see here, in place of y, we have to substitute an approximate function yh, alright, and in that case we will have left hand side not equal to right hand side for all x and all t. So that we are terming as the residue. Alright, so we will write that this term minus the terms in the left hand side, we will term it as residue. So here I have defined the residue. The first term m times acceleration, the second term, that is the incorporated that associated with the curvature, and q is the transverse load. Alright, so this is the residue. Okay, so let me write this as residue. What next? Now we will make use of weighted residual approach. Okay, so we say that there is a arbitrary function w, okay, multiplied with the residue r, integrated over the whole domain. In this case the domain is 0 to L, so integrated it and equated it to 0. So that is the weighted residual approach. Alright, weighted residual approach or statement. Alright, so this we have used quite a few times. Then what we will do, we will substitute the residue here. So if I multiply w with this residue here, okay, what we get? The first term m y double dot. So this is basically y double dot. Alright, so all the time derivatives we will refer as dot, and all the special derivatives we will refer as subscript comma x. So let me just tell you that y double dot means del y del t, y double dot represents del 2 y del t square, then y comma x is basically del y del x, and y comma xx is basically del 2 y del x square. Right, so we will just use these notations. So the first term m y double dot into w, alright, so this is written in the first term here. The second term involves the curvature, okay, the second derivative of the curvature with respect to w, okay, integrated from 0 to L, and the third term q times w integrated from 0 to L is equal to 0. So this is the strong form. Alright, so we have done this many a times before. Now what we will do, we will take help of the integration by parts, okay, particularly this term, okay. We will try to reduce the derivatives, order of derivative on y. So we will write del 2 del x square ei del 2 y del x square into w dx integrated from 0 to L. We will write as first term will be del of del x ei del 2 y del x square into w limit 0 to L minus what we will get? We will get del of del x ei del 2 y del x square derivative of w with respect to x dx. So we use the integration by parts once. If I do it once again on this case, so we will have this as it is. Alright, let me write it again. So del of del x ei del 2y del x square into w 0 to L minus. So here what we will do, we will integrate this term here. So we will get ei del 2y del x square into del w del x, limit 0 to L. Alright, so this term we can keep in bracket. Alright, this term also and keep in bracket, and then minus. So minus and minus, this becomes plus. So what we will be having, 0 to L ei del 2y del x square del 2w del x square dx. Alright, so here now we have both the term y and w, its second derivative present. Alright, now if I look at this ei del 2y del x square, so actually ei del 2y del x square is basically the moment at x. Alright, if this is at x, so that means it is the bending moment at x. Alright, now as you know, del m del x, alright, is equal to minus Vx, so that is the shear force. Alright, so this term, okay, is replaced by minus Vx into w, alright, 0 to L. This term we have ei del 2y del x square, that will be moment m at. So here you will just note down, it will be function of both x and t, alright, into del w del x 0 to L, plus this term will remain as it is. Alright, so this is ey. So I have second derivative of y and second derivative of w dx. Alright, so now if these three terms are substituted in this expression, so this sign will change if we take it in the right hand side. So here we have written these two terms, alright, in the right hand side. Alright, and this term is kept at the left hand side. Alright, so now what we get? We get this term. So if I this is first term, so this is the first term, remain as it is. This is this part, so this is what we got from this term, alright, minus q w dx, that has been taken in the right hand side, so that has been written here in the right hand side. Alright, and other two terms are appearing as boundary conditions. Alright, now as I have discussed earlier, here the continuity requirement on y has reduced, okay, compared to the strong form, so we call this as a weak form. Okay, so right now if I look at the problem in hand, we see that for the simply supported case, both the ends are pinned, so the displacement at x equal to 0 and x equal to L is defined for all time t. So it means the weight function w, okay, has to vanish at x equal to 0 and at x equal to L for all time t. So for the problem in hand, this w is actually equal to 0 at both x equal to 0 and x equal to L, right. Similarly, in the simply supported case, we said that at both the pinned ends, okay, there is no bending moment acting, so in that case it is 0, both at x equal to 0 and x equal to 8. So both the boundary condition actually vanishes in this case, and we are left with only these 3 terms in the weak form. Alright. So now let us go ahead and discretize the domain and substitute the unknown in terms of the basis functions. Here, so as I said, w is 0 for the problem in hand at both x equal to 0 and L, and m is also 0 at both x equal to 0 and L. Alright. So these 2 terms will change depending on the problem. Alright. Means the boundary conditions. Alright. So now what we will do? We will now substitute this y in terms of the basis functions. Now as we have discussed earlier that we have a second derivative of y present here. So it means that the y function has to be C1 continuous. It means that the first derivative y has to be continuous. So that tells us that y has to be specified, okay, or the value as well as the slope of the function y has to be specified at each point or at the nodal points. So it gives rise to 4 constraints in each element, okay, and that renders cubic polynomial. Alright. So these phi j's, okay, that has been used to represent y. So these are Hermite cubic polynomials. Alright. So and we know the definitions. Now here, as I said in the earlier problem, okay, that the coefficients here, these are the coefficients are not constant, rather they are function of time. So the nodal displacements are actually depending on time. Alright. So we have total n number of basis functions. Okay. So y has been written as aj phi j, where a depends on time and phi j depends on x. Now as we discussed earlier, using Galerkin principle, what we do? We represent w, the arbitrary function w, we take as one of the basis functions phi I to arrive at the ith equation. Alright. So what we did here, here also we will substitute w as phi I and y will substitute as aj, okay, phi j, summation over j, right. So here I have written, so let us go one by one. Here we have substituted y by aj phi j. Now phi j is a function of x and aj is a function of time, so we will have second derivative of aj, okay, with respect to time. And since aj doesn't depend on x, so we have taken it outside the integral. We have written aj double dot phi j, okay, so that represents y double dot, and phi I represents w. So we get this term from the first term here. Alright. Similarly, from the second term, okay, what we get? We get the second derivative of phi j. So we get aj, second derivative of phi j, while replacing y as aj phi j and phi I comma xx. So that we got from the second derivative of w. Alright, fine. So this we obtained from the second term. Alright, this we obtained from the first term. Now whereas in the right hand side, okay, here as you see we have w replaced as phi I. Alright. Now for general case, okay, we have replaced in here phi I in case of w and phi I comma x in place of del w del x, alright, as shown here. But these 2 terms for the problem in hand will not be contributing, as I have already discussed. Alright. So now let us go ahead and find out the compact expression. So if this term integral of m phi I phi j dx, okay, if this is written as capital M I j, this is written as capital K I j, and since this depends on only I, so this will be replaced as f I. So the whole equation, or in general sense the whole term, all the terms will be represented as f I, okay, for any problem, you can say. So in that case we can write this as Mij alpha j summation over j, okay, plus k ij alpha j summation over j. Here we have double derivative of alpha, alright, or a, okay. Let me represent them as a, alright. Here we got fi, alright, fine. So now this, how do we get? We get this by substituting w as phi I. So that's why this is ith equation. So if I go on and replace I with 1, 2, 3 and so on up to n, then we get similarly n equations. So those n equations we wrote in the matrix form as m a double dot plus k a, alright, is equal to f, fine. And as you see, each of these mij's where I and j are going from 1 to n, so that's why this M matrix is of size n by n, k is also n by n, and f is of size n by 1, alright. So now this is the you can say semi discrete form we got, okay, while undergoing the spatial discretization, okay. So now you see we have obtained the a set of second order ordinary differential equation, alright. Now before going further, what we will do is we will take a general problem, alright. In that case we have the, as usual, m a double dot plus k a term, alright, but in addition I have also considered the damping term. So this is basically the mass matrix, this is the stiffness matrix, alright. In addition I have considered another matrix C, which basically represents the damping in the system, because most of the real life problems they have damping inbuilt. So this C matrix you can actually obtain from some experimental response, or in otherwise we represent C as a linear combination of m and k, alright. So in case of linear damping. So anyway, just to keep the generality, what we do, we will keep this term C times a dot, okay, and we will try to formulate the final discrete form, alright. So now let us see how we can solve this set of second order ordinary differential equation. So as I discussed earlier, okay, while solving this kind of time dependent problems, what we do is the whole time span, okay, starting from t naught to say tn, the whole time span we divide into some steps, alright, and we are interested in solving this set of ordinary differential equation at certain time interval, alright. Say we know the response of the system at t equal to t0. From there we are interested in finding out its response at time t equal to t1, where t1 is equal to t naught plus delta t naught. So we take a time step t naught, delta t naught, okay, and we move ahead from t naught to arrive at t1, and we are interested in finding out the response at t1. Similarly, in the next step from time instant t1 we will move to t2 by taking a time step delta t1, alright. So we will write t2 is equal to t1 plus delta t1. So we will take a time step of delta t1 and we will try to find out the response at t2 and so on, alright. So in general I will say that starting from tn we will try to find out the response at tn plus 1 time instant, alright, by taking a time step delta tn, alright. So let me just repeat, we know the response at time instant tn, we will take a time step delta tn and we will try to find out the response at tn plus 1. So all the terms associated with time instant tn, will have a subscript n. Alright. So if I say the displacement, so I will say displacement, okay. So in this case this is nodal displacement, because A are basically the nodal degrees of freedom. Alright. So these are correspond to the nodal displacement at each of the nodes, or displacement at each of the nodes. So if I am interested, or if I can find out the displacement at time instant Tn, I will refer it as a n. Okay. Similarly, the displacement at time instant n Tn plus 1 will be represented with a Tn plus 1 or a subscript n plus 1. Similarly, the velocity will be represented as a dot n and a dot n plus 1. It's fine. So now let us see how we can write the acceleration and velocity at time instant n plus 1 in terms of the displacement at n plus 1 and the velocity, displacement and acceleration at time instant n. Alright. So this scheme is called Newmark scheme. Alright. As you see here in the first expression, we have written displacement at time instant n plus 1 as the displacement at nth instant plus delta t into displacement, so this is delta t into velocity at time instant n plus delta t square by 2 into acceleration, okay, at n plus gamma. Alright. So double dot means the acceleration. Alright. Now how I can express the acceleration at n plus gamma, because we know at n or n plus 1 what is n plus gamma, that is given in the third expression. So you see the acceleration at n plus theta, so theta has to be substituted or replaced by gamma. So if I want to express a double dot at n plus theta, I just have to multiply 1 minus theta with acceleration at n and theta into acceleration at n plus 1. Alright. So in some sense it is basically interpolating. Alright. By choosing different theta, okay, I can actually obtain the acceleration, okay, from these acceleration at time instant n and acceleration at n plus 1. Alright. So in order to find out acceleration at n plus gamma, I just have to replace theta with gamma. Now here in this case the second expression tells us that velocity at n plus 1 is equal to the velocity at nth instant plus acceleration at n plus alpha into delta t. Delta t is the time step. Here we have assumed that all the time steps are equal. Delta t naught equal to delta t1 equal to delta t2 and so on. Alright. So all the time steps are equal and is equal to delta t. Alright. So now here this gamma and alpha are basically constants, and we can actually choose different values of gamma and alpha, and I will show you that that leads to different numerical scheme. Alright. So now what we will do, okay, here as we see, first what we will do, we will replace this acceleration at n plus gamma from the third expression. Alright. So if I write it over here, so we will see, we will write a double dot, okay, at n plus gamma is basically 1 minus gamma a double dot, okay, at n plus gamma at a double dot n plus 1. So that we are using this expression. Alright, and this we will replace here. Alright. So now what we will do, from this first expression, this expression, we will try to find out the acceleration at n plus 1 in terms of all other things, okay, present here, like displacement at n plus 1 and displacement at n, velocity at n and acceleration at nth instant. Alright. So we will try to find out this in terms of all other terms. So if I do that, okay, here is what we get. Okay, if I use the third expression, okay, and replace theta equal to gamma, okay, and put it in the first expression. So we will get what I have written over here, and from here we will just obtain this in terms of all other things, okay, or all other terms present here. So this is what you will get: acceleration at n plus 1 is equal to displacement at n plus 1, and this is displacement at nth instant, velocity at nth instant, and acceleration at nth instant. As I said, these three terms are actually known to us because this corresponds to displacement, velocity, and acceleration at nth instant. So at nth instant we actually know everything, okay, and we want to find out the displacement, velocity, and acceleration at n plus 1th instant. So that's how we move ahead. So acceleration has been expressed in terms of displacement at n plus 1. Now similarly, if I make use of the third expression and put it in the second expression, so what we get? We get the velocity at n plus 1 is equal to velocity at nth instant plus delta t into 1 minus alpha, because here I will replace theta with alpha, into acceleration at nth instant plus delta t into alpha acceleration at n plus 1th instant. Alright. So from here we will replace acceleration at n plus 1 from this expression that I have just now derived. So here we will replace the acceleration at n plus 1 so that we can get the velocity, okay, in terms of displacement at n plus 1 and all other terms at nth instant. Alright. So these are at nth instant Tn. Alright. So that is the purpose. So velocity at n plus 1 we will try to express in terms of the displacement at n plus 1 and displacement, velocity, acceleration at nth instant. So this is the purpose. So let us go ahead. I have written the final expression. So here is the final expression. So we get velocity at n plus 1 in terms of displacement at n plus 1 and displacement, velocity, and acceleration at nth instant. Now beta 1, beta 2, beta 3 are constant in terms of alpha, gamma, and delta t. So these are expressed here. Now what we will do? So we will make use of these two equation or these two expression. Let me refer this at A, okay, where I express the acceleration at n plus 1, and this as B, where I expressed velocity at n plus 1 in terms of all other things at nth instant and displacement at n plus 1. Fine. So these are the two expressions that we will use. Now we will go back and write the equilibrium equation that we just obtained, okay, through special discretization. Now since this equilibrium equation is valid at certain discrete points in the domain but for all time instances, okay, these are second order ordinary differential equation. These are valid at certain discrete points in the domain, or these are maintaining the equilibrium at certain discrete points in the domain but for all time instant t. Alright. So it will be true for time instant t n plus 1 as well. So that's why the equilibrium equation is written at t n plus 1. Okay. So this represents the mass matrix, that is at n plus 1. This is the damping matrix at time t n plus 1. This is the stiffness matrix at time t n plus 1. Alright. Now these are written with a subscript n plus 1 in case they depend on time. Alright. Otherwise they can simply be constants. Now here as you see we have acceleration at n plus 1, velocity at n plus 1. So this we are going to replace, okay, using equation A and B, okay, so that we can get only one unknown, that is the displacement at n plus 1. Alright. So from A and B we are going to replace the acceleration and velocity at n plus 1 in terms of the other thing that we have, okay, so that we can get only one unknown, that is the displacement at n plus 1. Alright. So we will collect all the coefficients that are having unknown alpha, A at n plus 1, alright, and we will see we will have these three terms, alright, involving mass matrix, stiffness matrix, and the damping matrix. Alright. So this is the only unknown now, okay, that we obtained from the equilibrium equation at Tn plus 1. Alright. Now, if we look at the right hand side, we have the force term at Tn plus 1, that is known because the force is defined by the user. Here we have displacement, velocity and acceleration at time instant Tn, that is also known. Here also the displacement, velocity and acceleration at time instant n. Alright. Now, so obviously as you can see, all the terms in the right hand side is known. Left hand side, this matrix is known. Alright. Only unknown is the displacement at time instant an plus 1. Alright. So, this equation has been rewritten in the compact form as k bar times an plus 1 is equal to f bar n plus 1. So, f bar n plus 1 is basically containing these many terms. Okay, this is a vector. Alright, and to obtain that we need the displacement, velocity and acceleration at nth instant and the force at n plus 1th instant. Alright, so that comprises the f bar vector, and this k bar vector represents this, k bar matrix represents this whole matrix, okay, containing these coefficients gamma, delta t and the matrix m, k and c. Alright. So, this is the final discrete form of the problem in hand. Alright. Now, we can go ahead and enforce the Dirichlet boundary condition, okay, and solve this problem, alright, using one of the numerical methods. So, if we understand the strategy, what we said, that now what we will do is, we know that displacement, velocity and acceleration at nth instant is known. Alright, we are going to take a time step delta Tn to move from time Tn to Tn plus 1, and we will find out the displacement, velocity and acceleration at n plus 1th instant. Once we get these three terms, we will put them in this place and we will obtain the same thing at time instant Tn plus 2 and so on. So, that is what is time marching scheme. Alright. Now, as I discussed in the earlier slide, that once we know these three things and the force at n plus 1, we can actually find out k bar and f bar, and we can obtain the solution an plus 1. Alright. So, that represents the nodal displacement at n plus 1 at time instant Tn plus 1. Now, we have to find out the velocity and acceleration also at time instant Tn plus 1 before going to the next time step. So, how to do that? We will make use of those expressions that we described in equation A and B. We wrote the acceleration at n plus 1 in terms of displacement at n plus 1 and displacement, velocity and acceleration at time instant n. Okay. So, we will make use of this equation to find out the acceleration at n plus 1, and that we will substitute here, alright, to obtain the velocity at n plus 1. That is why, that is how I will obtain all the terms corresponding to time Tn plus 1, and once I do that, I will go ahead and take the next step, and similarly I can complete all the time steps. Alright. Now, the question comes is, in order to start the problem, okay, because we have to start from time instant t equal to 0, alright, or say t equal to t naught. So, if I start at t equal to t naught, okay, what I need to know the displacement at time instant t equal to t naught, I need to know the velocity, okay, at t equal to t naught, and the acceleration at t equal to t naught. Alright. Now, the displacement and velocity I can obtain from the initial condition, okay, because I know how it is displaced initially, I know how the velocity varies in the domain. So, I know the nodal displacements, I know the nodal velocity, alright, but acceleration is not provided because the partial differential equation in hand contains only the second derivative in time. So, generally we do not provide the acceleration, okay, in case that is not necessary, but to take this numerical approach, we actually have to take help of this acceleration at time instant t naught. Alright. So, how to get that? So for that, what we will do, we will write the equilibrium equation at time instant t naught, alright, because as I said, this semi discrete form, that is valid at all time instant t, alright. So that is why I can write at any time instant t, okay. Here I have written at t equal to t naught. Now what we will do, we will substitute this thing as known, so we can take this in the right hand side, okay. These two terms we can take in the right hand side, and since M is always a positive definite matrix, so we can invert it and obtain the acceleration at time instant t naught, okay. That is how we will arrive at the acceleration at time equal to t naught. So once I find it at t equal to t naught, I can easily take the step delta t naught and I can find out the same thing at time instant t equal to t1, okay, following the equations I just now explained, alright. Now here I have shown the different schemes depending upon the different values of alpha and gamma. So as I said, these schemes have different properties like stability, okay, consistency and accuracy, alright. So depending upon different problem, we take up different methods, alright. As I said, in this case we will take this average acceleration method, which is stable, alright. Stable means, as I said, stable means there is no upper limit on delta t, alright. You do not have a cap on delta t, so you can take large time step, but even then your approximate solution will remain bounded, alright. But if you take your time step very large, then what will happen, your accuracy will get hampered, alright. So you have to take care of both the accuracy as well as stability. So now let us go ahead and discuss about how to implement these problems, alright. So here I have just shown the three definitions, okay. This I already explained in the earlier lecture. Here I have shown that for conditionally stable scheme, okay, this delta t critical is basically the upper limit, alright, where your time step has to be less than this critical time step, which depends on the maximum eigenvalue of the problem in hand, alright. So we have already discussed how to calculate the eigenvalues for a given problem using finite element method, alright. So this corresponds to the maximum eigenvalue for the same mesh, alright, and these are the parameters that you have chosen for which the scheme becomes conditionally stable, alright. So this is an expression, there is a proof to it, so I will not go into detail, but your time step in that case is restricted or limited by this limit delta t critical, it has to be less than delta t critical, alright, in order to have a stable solution. Now today I will be discussing two problems, alright. One, in that case I will discuss about a simply supported beam, alright. Initially we have a uniformly distributed load, okay. As you see, this is the deflected shape and the deflected shape is provided, alright, because of the uniform load, the displacement, sorry, the displaced shape is given, alright. Now we are interested in what should be the subsequent motion if this load is suddenly removed, alright. So initially you have a load, now suddenly if you remove the load, obviously the system will start vibrating, so that response we want to simulate. So obviously the initial displaced shape we have taken as the initial condition, okay, on displacement, and the initial velocity has been taken as 0, alright. So because we are not disturbing, there is no impulse, alright, so we just remove the load. So here the velocity has been taken as 0 and the external load q x comma t remains 0 for the rest of the time, alright. So in order to understand how accurate is our solution, we have taken the analytical solution, okay. So these are the eigenvalues corresponding to this problem in hand. So this is the ith eigenvalue. So if I replace I equal to 1, I will get the first natural frequency, and this expression tells us the corresponding shape, alright, for any time instant t. So if I replace at x equal to L by 2, if I replace x equal to L by 2, so I will get basically the deflection at x equal to L by 2 for all time instant t. Alright. So, this has been obtained by making use of the expansion theory. So, these are discussed in vibration. Okay. So, any vibration book you can, textbook you can take up and you can find out these analytical expressions. Here we have applied step input. Alright. So, initially there was no load. Okay. So, the initial condition, both the displacement and velocity is 0 as is written here, but we just applied the transverse load. In this case it is a concentrated load at the middle of the beam. Okay. So, this is at x equal to L by 2, at the middle of the load we just applied a unit step force. So, F naught times a Heaviside function. Alright. So, this is a unit step function. So, at t equal to t naught and onwards it is 1, and before t naught t equal to 0 it is 0. Alright. So, because of this external excitation, what is the subsequent motion in the beam, that we are interested to simulate. So, as usual I have collected the corresponding analytical solution. These are the ith natural frequency, and this tells us, or this gives us the displacement or the shape of the beam for any time instant t and for any x. Alright. So, here again we will substitute x equal to L by 2 and try to find out the displacement as time varies. Alright. And we will compare it with the finite element solution. Alright. So, now let us go ahead and look at the finite element code. Okay. So, first I will discuss about the initial value problem. Alright. So, as I said, there is a simply supported beam, okay, which is initially subjected to a uniformly distributed load. Suddenly the load is removed and we are interested in the subsequent motion. So, this is basically initial value problem. So, we mentioned the initial displacement and initial velocity. The transverse load or external excitation remains 0 for rest of the time. Alright. And we will find out how the y changes with x and t. Alright. So, as usual in this case I have defined the material properties and the geometric properties of the beam. As you see, this is the modulus of elasticity, thickness, width of the beam, length of the beam. Sorry, this is the length of the beam. This is the second moment of inertia, okay, because we have chosen a rectangular cross section. This is the density of the material. So, in this case from there we calculated the mass per unit length of the beam, because that is also involved in the right hand side. Then we calculated the flexural rigidity. So, this is the first natural frequency and I have obtained the corresponding time period, and because I have simulated it for some multiple of the time period. Okay. Then we define the finite element details. Here you see the number of elements we have taken as 20, because I have already checked the convergence, okay, both in spatial discretization as well as temporal discretization. You have to check the convergence for both of them. Alright. So, one thing I just need to note, that in the hyperbolic case your time is basically time step is basically proportional to the element size, that is h. Alright. So, if you divide an element and make an element from h to h by 2, so your time step also has to be reduced to delta t to delta t by 2. Alright. So, that kind of thing has to be maintained. Now, as I said, we have taken 20 elements in this case. We have 4 degrees of freedom in a given element, because at each node we have 2 degrees of freedom. Okay. So, this basically corresponds to the coordinates of each of the elements. Alright. I have just simply, because in this case the domain has been discretized uniformly. Okay. All the elements are having equal length. Alright. So, you can easily find out the coordinates, alright, from the number of elements. Now, h denotes the length of each of the element. Here I am interested in simulating this, okay, up to 4 times the time period. Okay. So, that is just to see how the response is for this much of time. Alright. this is the time step. So in this case delta t is 0.005. Okay. Then what we will do is we have chosen the average acceleration method. So in that case beta equal to, so this is basically alpha, so gamma equal to half and alpha equal to half. Alright. Now as I said, we had a uniform distributed load, so that is giving the displacement u. So because as I said, in order to start with I have to provide the nodal displacements an, alright, an or a naught. So in order to do that, we have to calculate the nodal displacement at time instant t equal to 0. So to do that, I have explained, I have written this function, okay, which I have already shown in the slide. So this actually tells us what is the displacement at a given point x. So simply if we feed the coordinate of the nodes, I can get the displacement. Now since in the beam problem at a given node, the first DOF is basically correspond to the vertical displacement and the second DOF corresponds to the slope. So we also need to define the slope as well at time t equal to 0. So simply I have taken the derivative of this first expression and obtained the slope. Alright. Now simply feeding the x coordinate will give us the corresponding slope at the nodes. So once we do that, what we have done is we have obtained this nodal displacement. So d naught is basically the initial, or you can say old displacement, okay, that we have obtained from the displacement ux, okay, that just now I defined here. Alright. And the velocity has been obtained, or the velocity is 0 in this case, okay, but the second DOFs, okay, that is obtained from the slope expression. Alright. So from the given displacement I have to calculate the nodal displacement, but the first DOF represents displacement, so that I have to obtain from u. The second DOF corresponds to the slope that I have to obtain from the ux. Alright. Then velocity is defined as 0 at all nodes, acceleration is also 0 at all the nodes. Fine. Then what we did is, in this case, since the K matrix and M matrix, the mass matrix and the stiffness matrix are not varying with time, so what we did, we calculated it before the time loop. Alright. So that is what I did for the parabolic problem as well. Since the K and M matrix are not time dependent, we calculated it before the time loop. But in case they are dependent on time, you have to put them inside the time loop. Alright. Now then we simply wrote the expression for element stiffness matrix and the element mass matrix for the beam. This part I have discussed in the eigenvalue problem, and since each of the elements are having same length and same geometric property and material property, that is why the same element and mass matrix has been used to obtain the global stiffness and the global mass matrix. Alright. So this part is basically the assembly. Alright. Once I get the global mass matrix and the global stiffness matrix, then what, we will start the time loop. Alright. So in this case, as I shared earlier, so this is the time loop, okay, ranging from time instant, second time instant, because the first time instant corresponds to t equal to 0. So that is why the I loop starts from 2 to the length of t. Alright. And at each time step I am calculating the force vector, because in the right hand side only the term that is dependent on time is basically the global force vector. So initialize the force vector and then we actually obtain the global force vector, but in this case as you see, for the rest of the time q remains 0 and the simply supported case there is no other term in the right hand side, so obviously the force vector will remain 0 for the entire simulation. Alright. So this you can actually, for the problem in hand, you can define Fg outside the time loop, that is not required to be put inside the time loop. Alright. Once we know the global stiffness, global mass and the global force vector, then we will calculate the K bar and F bar. So that I just explained in the slide. Alright. Let us go back and look at the expressions here. Alright. So as you see, so this part is the K bar part and rest of the part in the right hand side is basically F bar. So both the terms we have to calculate separately. So this is exactly what has been discussed here. So the first matrix is K bar containing the mass matrix, damping matrix and the stiffness matrix, but here damping is 0, alright, but for the generality purpose I have kept the damping matrix in the expression. Similarly, I have calculated the force vector that contains the force vector corresponding to time t at t n plus 1, alright. In this case this is 0, but in the next problem that I am going to discuss, where there I have to calculate Fg at every time instant, alright. So all other as you see, this involves the displacement at the older time step, velocity at the earlier time step, and similarly here if you see expand it, this is the acceleration at the previous time step, alright. So this is exactly the same that has been shown in the slide. So once I get the K bar and F bar, what I will do, I will enforce the boundary condition. So simply supported beam, the first DOF that corresponds to the displacement at x equal to 0, that has to be 0, and the last but 1, okay, that DOF has to be 0 because that represents the displacement at x equal to L. So that is exactly what has been discussed. So the entire row in the stiffness matrix, those two rows are deleted, and in the force bar also, force vector also, we have deleted the corresponding terms. Then we solved and calculated the displacement at n plus 1th instant. So this dn is basically the new displacement or the displacement at time tn at time instant tn plus 1. Once we obtain the dn, we just appended the degrees of freedom. Just now we deleted to take care of the Dirichlet boundary. So we appended those, alright, and then from there we obtained the new acceleration and new velocity. It means the acceleration and velocity at time instant t n plus 1, alright. This also I have just shown in the slide how to calculate them at time instant t n plus 1. Once we finished doing everything at time instant t n plus 1, what we will do, we will go to the next step, alright. So in order to do that, I have assigned this new displacement as old displacement, similarly velocity at time instant t n plus 1 as velocity or the older velocity, and acceleration at the time instant n plus 1 as the older acceleration, because these terms will be used in the subsequent time step, alright. And finally I have stored those displacement just to visualize, alright, and this is just to note how the simulation is proceeding, alright. Here I have calculated the analytical solution with which I will be comparing my finite element solution, alright. Finally both the solutions are compared, okay, in a given plot. Now let us go ahead and simulate this to find out the response. What I have done is basically I have calculated the displacement of the mid of the beam and compared with the corresponding analytical solution, okay, as I increase the time, alright. So as you see, it is basically showing the time, okay, of simulation, and finally it displays the solution. So here is as you see, I have plotted time versus displacement. This is the displacement of the point at the mid of the beam, and the analytical solutions and finite element solutions are compared, and a good match you can actually see, right. And as you see, the response actually keep on oscillating, okay, and since there is no damping also, so the amplitude remains the same, alright. Now as I said, since the finite element solution is a numerical solution, always you have to check, okay, with an analytical solution or with an experimental solution, alright. Now I will be discussing about the forced vibration problem, alright. This problem is a little bit different, okay. Here the initial conditions are 0, okay, simply supported beam, that is initial condition is 0, that both the displacement and velocities are 0, but at time instant t equal to 0, we suddenly put a force F naught at the middle of the beam, alright, and that basically renders the vibration. So all the part remains the same, only the thing is here we have defined an external force at time instant t, that as you see, this F naught is basically the magnitude of the force, and this Heaviside function is basically representing the step function. So this tells that at time instant t greater than 0, okay, this function becomes 1, alright. Before that response is 0, alright. So I have again simulated for the same time duration, alright. All the schemes are same, and only the new step is basically here we have calculated the global force vector that was absent, okay. In the earlier problem that was 0, entirely 0 for the duration of the simulation, but here, okay, taking help of that force function, actually we calculated the corresponding force, alright, and this has to be assigned in that particular corresponding to that particular degree of freedom, alright, otherwise it will create a problem. So we just identified the mid node, okay, from there we identified the corresponding DOF and we located the row, okay, where this force has to be appended in the force vector, alright. So that has to be done very carefully, alright. Only this part is new. Apart from that, again we calculated k bar, f bar similarly, and put the boundary conditions and solve for the problem, okay. And finally we assigned this newly calculated displacement velocity to the old ones, okay, and finally we compared it with the analytical solution. Here the analytical solution, basically what we did, we calculated at L by 2 at the midpoint. We are interested in finding out the displacement for the entire duration of the time, alright. So now if I again run this will give a similar response, but if you look at closely, the magnitudes are different, alright. So as I told, here I have plotted time versus displacement, alright, and since at time instant t equal to t naught, the force becomes 1, suddenly the force comes into the system, and that basically the system starts vibrating. So as you see here, okay, you have a system response which is continuously oscillating with the same amplitude, and since there is no damping, the amplitude remains the same. So and the finite element solution and analytical solution are pretty close to each other, which verifies the method. Thank you.